Let's do it. Welcome, ladies and John. Oh, I'm gonna redo that one. I was about to say John.
Oh, I'm keeping that.
My bad.
I get to edit it, bro. I'm keeping
junkies.
that.
That'll probably be the highlight.
All right. I didn't need to clap twice, but anyways. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Talk Junkies, where we are going to have a very interesting topic tonight, a very interesting discussion. You guys are all aware, anyone who's watching this podcast, at least I would hope so, 140 million people voted, a little bit more. We're going to go do a post-election podcast, and we're going to discuss all the topics that have been talked about within the past 3 or 4 days, and we're just going to shed light on that. And there's no better guest to have on than someone who's written a few books on group tribalism, man, because that's exactly what we're facing right now. In the face of America, everything that's going on with America right now is tribalism. It's 100% tribalism. Johnny, like you said, man, 74 million people, Joe Biden, 70 million people, Donald Trump. Tribalism is taking over America right now, and there's no better guest to have on than, we got 2 of his books up right here, The Left versus the Right, Tribalism. Mike Anderson, what is going on, man? Welcome to Talk Junkies. Let's do this.
All right. Good to hear you guys. Good to see you.
Yeah. Always glad to have you on, Mike.
It is, and it's a beautiful day in America. It's been that way for a lot of days, man. Here in the Midwest, it's gorgeous weather, beautiful weather in November. It's crazy. It's insane. No more insane than the elections that are going on right now, Mike. So let's pick your brain a little bit, man. You've written books. You've written books about tribalism, man. And we're seeing that forefront right now, what's going on in America. And it's always been this way when we vote left or right, but it's just super, super intense right now when it comes to left versus right. And tribalism,
It's the worst it's ever been.
It's
It's the worst it's ever been as far as the separation of the two parties, for sure.
what are your thoughts?
Well, at least in this century. I mean, when we talked the last time, I mentioned the Civil War, which you have to consider worse than this.
Oh, that's true.
Because 600,000 people killed each other. So
We're not quite there. We're just calling
Right.
each other names on Facebook and stuff.
right.
But what are your thoughts about the whole election? Briefly, we were outside. We talked a little bit about voter fraud. And before the podcast, we talked about how Trump kind of just shot himself in the foot. Is it a little bit of both? Or is it just Trump shot himself in the foot? Or is it voter fraud?
Hey, Paul, do me a favor and move that little Talk Junkies thing from the corner of the screen up there. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, I got you.
Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Okay. Well, the jury's still out on, voter fraud. You don't know whether some of it is intentional and some of it's unintentional. Who knows? I mean, when you have to count hundreds of thousands of ballots like that, there can be a lot of mistakes. People aren't careful. Ballot gets put in the wrong pile, whatever. I mean, you could imagine mistakes happening. He can ask for a recount on states he lost if the margin is small, and they'll do the recount, and we'll see what happens. I think it's fair to say that historically, there aren't many times where the vote gets turned around because they find mistakes, but they're not enough to overcome the difference.
Has there ever been a time in American history where a mail-in ballot has been as big as it is today?
No, this is by far. This is by far. And the early voting, there were like 60% of the 2016 election voted this time as early voters. And I'm a little concerned about it. I don't know. That'd be an interesting, like, little topic to discuss on here. I think there's a lot of risk for mistakes and errors and cheating in the mail-in ballot system. And like in Ohio, where I live, they have absentee ballots, and you can request an absentee ballot. You fill it out and you mail it in. That's the end of it. They don't have other kinds of early voting. Now you can go to a polling place. You could go to the elections office and stand in line and vote before the election. But the absentee ballot system is pretty tried and true, because you get, you mail it in, you sign it, mail it in. They match your signature with the signature that you have on file when you registered, and away you go. But this new kind of balloting where, there were concerns about ballot harvesting. I don't know if you guys read about that. Like you could have people driving around collecting ballots and bringing them in a pile. And you don't know,
or throwing them away.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, who's controlling that process? Is the guy driving the car filling out the ballots and bringing them in? It just seems like there could be a lot of abuse there. So I don't know. It seems like, a person with an ID who votes in person is sound. It's a sound system.
100%.
So,
and just a question for you. I don't think it's unfair for Trump to ask for that, right? Not necessarily vote in person with ID, but just to oversee what just happened. We're in uncharted waters right now with this new mail-in ballot shit. What is to be done about that? I'm for a fair election, and if Trump loses, fairly, I'm all for that. And if Biden and if Biden loses fairly, I'm all for that. But we got to know fairly, right?
Yes, exactly. Because if the elections aren't fair and the American people don't trust the elections, it's a big problem.
Well, isn't that kind of the case in America right now? Is so many people feel as though their vote really doesn't matter. It's only between A and B, and they really don't fit, who I would really want as a candidate, so I'm even participating in it at all. Because you said 140 million people voted, right? Mm-hmm. That's like basically half of people who are living in the United States right now, right? What is it?
Well, it's over that because
it's 330 million.
330, yeah.
330
30
but
million?
70 between 70 and 80 million are under 18. So you got to take that out of the 330 million.
Oh, okay.
So you're actually looking at roughly like 65%, 70%, something like that. It's a lot of people that voted this time around.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's usually in the 50s, and I think it was in the 60s this time.
Probably because Donald Trump was stepping on his own feet and got too many people on the other side riled up who would have normally not voted, and then all of a sudden give them fire to vote against him, basically.
Right.
In my opinion, that's how I think.
And you also have the quote unquote, whether it be, whether it be voter fraud or just ease of access, you have the mail-in ballots. So in theory, whether there's a fraud aspect to that or it's legitimate votes that are being mailed in, you've still made it easier to vote by having the mail-in process, which is going to get more people to vote than just going to the polls. I'm not saying that's a better thing. I'm just saying that is a byproduct.
Well, and there's people, I read some articles, some people say, well, next time we'll do it on cell phones. We won't even use paper. And, the likelihood of fraud from that is unimaginable to me.
Exponentially higher.
Hold up.
It's exponentially higher anytime you have the electronics involved.
That's actually something I wanted to talk about, and I almost brought it up earlier, and I want to go into this real quick because I've thought about that in the past. Why don't we use computers, blah, blah, blah. We live in a technological age. The year's 2020. But, I remember thinking about this back in 2012 because the Internet's been around for some time now, And my big thing with that is a lot of people are scared of fraud because obviously hacking is very much an easy thing to do. And anybody out there who doesn't think it is, it's, I mean, man, your credit card info's on some website right now that someone can buy. Like someone can purchase any of our credit card info right now. I'd pretty much 90% guarantee that. Anyways, it's obvious that stuff can be hacked. It's obvious that fraud can definitely go on when dealing with it from a computer. My thing is, though, given the right system, and you would have to do something like, kind of like with you when you file something with the IRS, you have a PIN code that they give you when you're filing for like the FAFSA for college or something like that. You have a PIN. So you would have to go in person to a place within like 6 months before the election or something like that and prove your identity with your ID, your social, whatever it is, get a code given to you. And then when you go online to the government, the .gov site to fill it out, you would input your social security, your birth date, your name, all that kind of stuff that they already have, that the IRS already has, and then put in this PIN code that says that it is you. And then after that vote has been cast, nobody else can use that social or that PIN code. Now, after that, you run into the fraud issue of the hacking and what else can take place. My only argument against that is the same thing happens with the mail-in ballots. The only difference is now you're introducing even more human error, because instead of going to the place, getting your PIN code, and then filling it out online, and then it being processed online and going to the voter, or going to the count, basically, when it's mailed in, you have it getting to your place correctly, you filling it out, it going to the car, and then the car taking it to the place, then taking that to the counter, all this different stuff where human error comes in, cheating comes in, fraud comes in. Like you mentioned, Mike, who's filling out these things? The driver of the freaking postal car could be filling out this stuff and then putting in it. Like, I honestly believe that there's more of an opportunity for fraud in the mail-in system than there would be in an online system.
Yeah. Well, we could, I mean, I'm in the technology business. I've been in it for 35 years. I know, and you guys know too, that it could work. Like, you undoubtedly log into your bank, to see what your balance is and stuff like that. And a lot of the logins they send you a code. You put the code in and you're in the bank. So you could do that. I mean, you could make that work, but I don't know how you control. First of all, the Constitution says the states create their own voting laws. So there's 50 different sets of voting laws.
Oh man, that'd be a
can't
huge
be
issue.
Standardized. So you got that. And then how do you create an information system and database, you need a national database? I mean, that would all be good. The thing is, who's going to push to get it done?
And we all know government websites suck. I'm pretty sure. And like you said,
awful.
you've got 35 years experience in technology. I'm sure you have seen government websites compared to private websites. Private websites or company websites are so much better than government sites. Government sites are awful.
I mean, especially
designed terribly,
you would
ran
think that,
terribly.
I mean, you would expect local government, like the city that we live in, their municipal court or whatever, their website's going to be a little wonky. It's not mobile friendly.
Even
all
then,
this,
man, you can hire someone to make it.
I've been on federal websites that are literally to the same caliber, where you're like,
they're
man,
garbage.
It's like Windows 98 on my phone out of nowhere. No, it's not good. They need to step that up, and I think they get enough money to actually be able to work that out.
Oh, I mean, Obamacare, what was it, like one point, it was like over $1 billion that was allocated to that fund, and look at what that site's like. It's the same shit that you're just describing.
Government sites have always been piss poor, and I've never understood that.
The thing you have to understand about technology, and a lot of politicians don't, because they don't understand it, is you can't put a deadline on a huge project and meet that deadline. Like if you say in July, we're going to have the Obamacare website going November 1st. You can't do it. You got to start a lot earlier than that, because every data processing application project takes longer than you think it's going to take, because there are too many bugs in the code, and it has to be tested like for years and stuff like that. It's not so much.
Cyberpunk.
I was just gonna say I'm trying to play a game called Cyberpunk, so I know how that delay thing works.
Let's not even do that.
That's an inside joke for whoever out there.
Literally
gets it.
for just me and you, which we shouldn't even have said it.
What are your thoughts, Mike, on the potential of voter fraud, not just with mail-in ballot, but just with the videos that have been surfacing the web, specifically YouTube, Twitter, all that stuff? You can go on there right now, and I think it's interesting. I had a friend. I was on. I had to get on Facebook, man. I just wanted to see everything that was going on, just to see what everyone's thoughts were. And a gentleman had said he's a Democrat. And he had said, "Is there any evidence of voter fraud? Because my echo chamber isn't saying that there is." So then I get on YouTube and I just look up.
Good for him for at least asking, by the way.
Yeah, 100%.
Mentioning the fact that he is in an echo chamber.
Right. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get on YouTube. I'm going to look up voter fraud election 2020. And I get on there, and again, I'm looking for something specific. I'm going to find it. It's on YouTube. And I just find a plethora of videos of just voter fraud. You know what I'm saying? People are wearing masks. You can clearly see it. It's happening. People going ballot after ballot, ballot after ballot. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts on that? Have you seen any videos to suggest that that's the case?
Well, I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter because I follow Twitter a lot, all during the day. There's things that I consider very disturbing, like in Detroit. And I don't know what the rules are specifically in terms of observers from each party, but there were some lawyers and Republican observers at the the election bureau where they were counting all the ballots that they had the police take them out. And I don't think that's right. I don't know what the justification was for that. It may be that I know that during a recount, each party is allowed to have an observer watch the counts. So I don't know why they weren't allowed in. Maybe that's a rule or something. Maybe they felt they were.
I actually was going to talk about that because we were talking about it outside, and I could be wrong here. I'm literally going off of sources that, who knows, it could be the media, it could be biased, you know what I mean? I'm going off of some articles that I read online. Those could be false. But from what I remember reading, they were talking about how there was a, what do you call that? An observer from both sides there. But the big thing that Trump was talking about with the whole, hey, why are there not observers kind of deal, is that these people who signed up to be an observer but then weren't selected to be at that location or whatever are still showing up and trying to get in, and then were turned away because they already had the observer there. And then so they played that up as observers being turned away.
Well, this is an example of a huge failure in the media, because the media really backs the left. So they back Biden. So they're not going to investigate anything that looks like voter fraud.
And that's why I said take that with a grain of salt. I'm just going off what I read.
Right. No. But then there's a case of Philadelphia where there were, I think there was a lawsuit or something before the election, and observers were allowed in, and they were required to be 30 feet from the ballot counters. And they were allowed, they said you can use binoculars, but you have to be 30 feet away. So you're going to be able to look through binoculars and see whether a signature matches or not. So then they went to the appeals court, they filed another suit, and the judge said you can be within 6 feet. But as soon as that judge ruled, then I'm not sure it's the Democratic Party, whoever is doing the counting in Philadelphia, probably Democratic, filed a countersuit and had him put back to 30 feet. Because a different judge said, no, you can't be that close, you have to be 30 feet. But that just looks horrible. I mean, I'm not even saying there was corruption, but when you can't let people see whether there's corruption, I mean, it smells like corruption, right?
Yeah. And do you really think that the whatever, I'm trying to remember, the county or whatever, whenever it comes down to like states getting that, Philadelphia was going to go to Biden anyway, in my opinion. Like why would you even need that? Any major city you see across the United States, typically non-rural areas go to Biden that aren't in the Bible Belt. Like especially closer to the East Coast, why would you even need to go through this? Philadelphia, I'd have to look up the track record right now, but they probably follow more liberal, going more.
Honestly, it's pretty much
left from.
It's most big cities, because even so Missouri went red, If you look at the map,
Kansas City,
was
St.
blue.
Louis,
Texas,
they go blue.
the big cities were blue, but everywhere else was red.
Well, the thing about Philadelphia is that's kind of a classic big machine city like Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And the big machine only matters in states that can go either way. So in Pennsylvania, it was a big deal. Doesn't matter in L.A., doesn't matter in New York, because the Democrats win by a mile. So the story in Pennsylvania was Philadelphia against the rest of the state, because Western Pennsylvania is all fracking. And Biden wanted to get rid of fracking. And so it was a question of, could Western Pennsylvania produce enough votes to offset Philadelphia? And the weird thing about it was, you guys probably know this, generally speaking, you get votes from the cities before the outlying areas, because they got to get mailed in or delivered or called in or whatever, even though there's fewer people. But Trump had a lead in all those states. I mean, he had a lead in Georgia, lead in North Carolina, lead in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, that just evaporated
at 4 a.m.
When we talked about that, I think that came from the mail-in ballots, because they counted the mail-in ones last.
Yeah. So and I don't know enough about it. To me, the media should have been there saying what really happened. Like, okay, this is Philadelphia. They're not counting any mailed in votes. They're only counting the votes that were cast in person. So then everybody knows that. And then they know there's a big count, and they should be able to predict where those mail-in ballots are from. Are they mostly from city people? Because then you could sort of make sense out of it. But when the lead just evaporates, I don't know. It just seems...
What's frustrating to me is the fact that you look at states like Florida, and there was mail-in ballots in every state, and you have Florida, who was a very large state, and even California, these massive states that are allowed, or these massive... Florida especially, they got the vote done. They got it done. They got the mail-in ballots. They made it happen, right? But then you have all these other swing states that waited till the last minute, right? And you said, like you said, the voting's up to the state. We got COVID going on right now. There's a lot of different things that are happening, and I get it. But you have a state like Florida with a large population. They're able to make the count by 10 p.m. Central Time.
Well, like Texas,
they called
too.
it, in Texas, too.
Huge state.
They're waiting till 4 a.m. to get these mail-in ballots, and then they're waiting even a couple more days. This makes the most sense, right? Like, whoever the state legislator is who made these laws and shit like that, they're just like, this is the best way to do it, Like, we're all in uncharted territory. I get it, and no one's ever going to get it right. But we're going to wait a couple days. We're going to wait until 4 a.m, 5 a.m, when a state like fucking Florida, a massive state with a massive population, counted these votes leading up to the election and already had the counts.
Yeah.
How does that not make sense? Common sense tells you should probably just count the votes.
Well, I mean, you can't put common sense and government in the same sentence.
My bad. You're right. My bad.
Well, somebody asked Jeb Bush, who was the governor of Florida when his brother got elected, how come your vote went so good in 2020? And he said, because we fixed everything that was wrong in 2000. So if you put your mind to it and you put some money to it, you can make your state efficient. There's a lot of states that were efficient, but some weren't.
That kind of makes sense too with the whole Florida thing. They were the ones who had a big problem in the past, with the recount and all this different kind of stuff. So all of a sudden, if they have an issue and they're always slow, and then they go through the process of fixing that issue, it makes sense that they would be a lot faster because they found a problem and fixed it. As to where others could have had a problem that they never needed to fix.
I mean, we're talking swing states here, though.
I know. I'm not. Well, all of that, man. At the end of the day, that doesn't even.
It's all too sexy. Honestly, it's all really just too sexy, and it's just like, damn, like everything's just led up to a point where it's like, man, is this really happening?
I will step back with what you talked about, Mike, with the media and stepping back to the observers again and all that. I will say that, and I remember talking about this maybe 8-10 podcasts ago or something. But I still think it's crazy to me that in the United States of America, supposedly one of the most democratic or democratic republic countries that exists kind of thing, that the votes aren't like public knowledge, because you go to like Germany and like I'm not going to list other countries because I'm ignorant, but tons of other like free world country kind of things, free state countries, where they literally like they've got their courthouse or whatever for that city, wherever they're counting it, or for that county, and the public can come in and watch them as they're like, hey, this is a vote for this person, put it in this stack. Hey, this is a vote for this person, put it over here. Like, if you're a citizen that pays taxes, you should be able to go to your local courthouse or wherever the count is done and watch them count.
Well, maybe you don't know this, but there are several states that, I don't know how many states, but you can actually go into their website and see exactly who voted. Because they did that in Michigan. You can go and say, Bob Jones, did he vote? And it'll show you he voted and stuff. And that's where they found a bunch of people that were dead. They had people, I saw a list, it was on Twitter, that people were all over 130 years old that were voting.
Which, how does that even get, our system, how does that even get through?
That happened in 2000.
It always happens. It always happens. But I'm like, how does that get through? How do you have the whole point of, isn't our social security number in a way, and I'm just talking out of my ass here now, isn't our social security number, though, kind of like your identity in America? That's like your American barcode.
Yeah.
So how do we have a social security number that should clearly say, hey, this person was born in 1876, so they're not alive anymore? And how does that vote get through?
Yeah. Well, somebody had to look the wrong way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, there was a article on Twitter, and again, sometimes the right overdoes this and they accuse the left of fraud when it really isn't. I don't know. But I saw somebody posted a note, and I think it was in Philadelphia, and it said, please mark this pile received November 2nd instead of November 5th. So some poll worker changed the date to make them legal. I don't know how many, whether it was 2 or
Project Veritas.
2,000.
I was telling them outside Project Veritas actually talked to multiple mail offices in these swing states, and they found exactly what you're describing. I mean, and I think
changing the postmark dates from like November 4th and 5th to
exactly
the 3rd.
And Jesse makes a good point though, and I think that this has happened throughout the election process through its entirety, and this is why this is exactly why we do the podcast, is because us as true libertarians or whatever you want to call us, independents or whatever. Like, this is what we're frustrated about. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is just a dog and pony show. It's theater. It's political theater. It's insane. This happens every 4 years. This happens. Can you describe it better than I can?
And it only keeps getting worse too, as far as between the candidates, the quality of the candidates, overall, and they just keep getting farther and farther, like polarized from each other. It becomes frustrating. Somebody like myself, who I feel is like fairly down the middle, and to just see this take place. But what was I feel like there was something else.
Just that every 4 years this happens, like voter fraud and shit.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest thing is that no matter what, it's always the losing side that speaks out the most at the end of it. And at some point, like, what happened to the old school mentality that, oh, this is our president and now we need to back him, as to where now we just need to attack him? And it's probably, in all honesty, the very vocal minority on either side that does this, but they tend to, they echo so loudly through.
They're the ones who have the biggest.
They shine the brightest.
Yeah. They shine the brightest, and that's kind of what it creates. And so what happens, whoever is the elected president of the United States, but then there's just this backlash and there's just constant attacking of this other individual, as to where we don't see them as the actual leader of the country. There are so many people, like, I know so many people that whenever Barack Obama got elected as president, wouldn't even call him President Obama. He's not my president.
Same
I'm
thing
like, well, that's not, that wasn't,
Same
well,
thing
it was
happened with
partially
Trump.
up to
it
you.
happens on both sides.
I know. It happens on both sides, absolutely. To where you're like, oh, I don't accept this. And I'm like, that's not how that works. He actually is your president. You can't, that's already over. That's been done. And you need to make things work. You don't need to keep clashing with people, which is initially, why we wanted to have you on for this podcast, because the matter of tribalism in America and all this, and the separation between the two, and just the clashing is just, god awful.
Well,
Like,
I mean, you know, guys, I've researched this a lot. Tribalism basically started during George W. Bush's administration. There really wasn't much during Clinton's administration. It was pretty much like the old days. And then about halfway through Bush's, it changed because of the war and all that stuff. And then Obama was the first president who his whole uh, time in office, we were in a tribalist state because the right decided it was going to oppose all of Obama's programs, so he didn't get hardly anything done. And
'cause he
now
was
we
too
had
socialist.
the reverse situation with Trump. The Democrats blocking everything he tried to do. Now it's interesting that I own stocks, and we've talked about stocks a little bit, and I know you guys have investments, and I was very nervous about my investments at the time on election day because I didn't know what would happen. And as you know, Trump is looked at as more of a friend of the economy than the left. So I thought my stocks would drop. So, and it's funny what happened. I sold a couple things or whatever, but it went down and then went back up again. The reason it went back up is because the Republicans won the Senate. Because Wall Street prefers a split government because they figure if it's split, nothing gets done. So they can't put any big programs in to ruin the economy, basically. I mean, it's very cynical, but that's what they think.
I do believe it'll drop a little over the next week because the official Biden being the president-elect was done over the weekend, not on a trading day.
Well, it isn't even official. I mean, the network, CNN, announced it. That doesn't mean anything.
Man,
I mean, they have to finish the counts and elect the electors within the states, and then they have to vote.
I don't know exactly what you've invested your money into, but for the majority of things, if you've played it fairly safe, stocks are like weather in Missouri. Just wait a day and it'll be different.
Right.
But the whole thing with the stock market is over a long enough period of time, it will always increase. Unless I'm not going down a financial road.
We all
I'm not
know
going
that.
down a
We all know
financial
that.
road. So there's no reason to be worried ever with stocks.
That's another big thing to me is how brainwashed people have become to sit there and watch CNN and watch MSNBC and Fox News and all this shit. And that was the most interesting thing about the whole election to me is that Fox News kind of turned their back on Trump. Is the fact that they're allowed, and we've had many podcasts on the media, man. And so to me, something has to be done. Something has to be done for they came out before the election and said that they are going to call the election. And they can say that. That's fine. That's fine. That the media can be like, yeah, we're going to call the election. But people will hold true to what they say. A massive amount of people. And to have that type of power, I think in unchecked power. Unchecked power.
Right.
That is insane to me.
But that's
absolutely asinine.
But they're not actually officially calling it. They're calling it.
No. The media said that they're officially calling it. They came out and said
no, but they can't. They are not an official body, though.
Exactly.
They can say anything.
They can say whatever they want. But
Right.
I'm saying that most
But
times
people
when they
believe it.
But when they call it though, it's always true. Like it's always accurate because they have the electoral vote. They're not calling it and being like, yeah, Trump won. They're calling it and saying Biden won, which maybe things will change with like legal suits and stuff.
What
but
about in 2000? In 2000, when they said that Kerry was going to win, and the media went along with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you're right. Majority of the time that they're right, but there's this one time that they're wrong, and they're sitting there saying that this is what they believe. Like, the media has a massive amount of influence on the people of the United States, and it's unchecked power, man. It's
Well, I
unchecked
don't know,
power.
and Mike would have to correct me on 2000 because I don't know because I was only 10 years old. But wouldn't they not call it until there were enough electoral college votes put in anyway? It's kind of like when the Associated Press calls the race. They're not saying it's official. They're just calling it based on the math.
Right. Yeah. I want to go back to something and take a cynical position for a minute because you guys brought it up about the people voting and the value of the votes and stuff like that. You could take the position that all letting us vote does is making us feel good about ourselves because the country is really run by a powerful capitalistic oligarchy, and it doesn't matter how we vote. I mean, you could say that.
That's what we believe.
And I want to quote you guys a couple of stats that will amaze you. I may have done it before, and if I have told you these things, forgive me. But you know the Walton family, Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the Walton family has as much money as 40% of Americans do. One family.
That doesn't surprise me one bit.
Now, then, here's the other stat. The top 400 richest families in the country, Waltons and the other 399, they have as much money as 60% of Americans do. So there's your oligarchy. There's where the money is.
Yeah.
Oh, we've always, we're all in agreement. We've always said that. I've talked about how the majority of people are on the, like if you were to draw a scale from 0 to 100, the people who are making $500,000 a year are still down here at like 2, you know?
They're closer to the people who make $24,000 a year than they are to the 1%. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and I watched a investment show the other day, and the basically the topic was how much do you need to retire? And this guy did a lot of math. It was interesting and stuff.
$2 million?
No, well, he says no. But one of the interesting stats he showed was that 85% of Americans have $5,000 or less to retire on.
You're talking about Dave Ramsey right now, aren't you?
No.
It sounds
No, it's
very
this guy
closely
just
to
on
Dave
YouTube.
Ramsey. Okay.
I know. I've heard him. Yes.
I like Dave Ramsey a lot, actually. I back him up. He is anyway. You can continue. We can continue on the little finance journey you're saying right now.
Right.
So now with what you're saying with that, do you know how dismal it is for a millennial like myself to think about what it would take for me to be able to retire is an impossibility. It is literally an impossibility for me unless I have this absolute ambition to go out and just make money. But that is not what I'm about. I've realized in life that you need to be happy with what you have first.
Right.
And if you can be happy with what because you can never be happy. If I'm unhappy now with, man, I have a house to live in. I have loving people around me. I have a great German Shepherd that I love to death. I'm able to save, put money into the stock market in case things go bad for me. I plan for the future, things like this. But as far as an actual retirement goes to where I can quit working and own a house, this is so far away from even a person of my standpoint who does I don't want to sound overconfident here, but does fairly well with money. That is impossible for me unless I decide that, I'm going to dedicate my life to just making money, which is what I refuse to do.
Well, now you're talking about a difference in culture between generations because you just said it. You refuse to dedicate your life to that.
Yeah,
that's
a waste of life.
But in the
pursuit
past,
of money,
hold up.
pursuit of money is a waste of life.
But in the past, maybe they did dedicate themselves to that. That's what I'm saying. So you're talking about a difference in culture.
Yeah, I mean,
what happened back in the 1950s when milkmen could own a nice house and their wife could still stay at home and then raise 4 children and then be able to provide college support for them. That's impossible for me. And I'm not a milkman. You know,
Right.
I'm honestly probably the equivalent of a milkman, to be honest with you, in 2020. But that's what it is. Where's my opportunity? And that's one thing that's gonna forever frustrate the millennials in my generation of people financially. And that definitely has something to do with the distribution of money. Coming back to what you were talking about is why do the Waltons own so much money? Why does the 1% have so much when we are, essential to the running of the country? Because if we go away, everything that they have goes away too. Like, we're essential. Where's the distribution of money? What happened to the capitalist American dream?
Right.
Because it seems pretty dead to me.
We better
Just
get back
coming from a millennial.
We better get back to the election, though.
Yeah,
'cause we could spend an
yeah,
hour
you're
on it.
going
Sorry,
off on a course that.
No, I felt like it got sparked up. I felt like it was
My fault.
Yeah. Don't bring that up with me. I'll go down the road.
Okay,
Sorry, you can
so
go back to the election.
here's the summary of the election. Trump probably blew it because he offended too many people with his behavior. Even though he
Completely
made
agree.
inroads with certain constituencies, it wasn't enough. There appears to be some funny stuff with the counting, which we'll get the answer to once they do the recounts. Either they'll show stuff or not. By far the most interesting thing to me that's going to happen now, and this goes right to my book, and you guys were talking about tribalism, is Biden claims we're going to go back to the way it was. We're going to unify as a country. We're going to be American people, not red states and blue states, and everything's going to calm down. Will that really happen?
No.
Is there-
No,
is
he's
there
going
question?
back.
It's laughable.
He's going
It's
back.
laughable.
It's going back to the establishment, right? The
Right.
establishment regime, and I'm to the understanding, and I was on the Trump train for a little while, but I've came back to reality, and realized that he's no different than anyone else, in my opinion. Again, just my opinion that Trump is he veered away from the establishment just a little bit, maybe because he's just cocky and that's just who he is, or maybe it's just part of the plan, honestly. But Biden is completely 100% going to go back to just what the establishment wanted. And that's unchecked power, and it's going to be Obamacare right back in our faces. And
Right.
think
What I'm
Mike's
I'm
talking
asking about is, will the media lay off the right? That's more important to me than what Biden does.
absolutely not, because if we have control, sorry, I said we, damn it. If the Republicans have control over the Senate, then there's always going to be that argument, right?
Right.
And
No,
not
but I'm
only
talking
that-
about just the media, Paul. Like,
no, I
for
understand that the media
example-
is not going to lay off.
Right. For example, I saw I've seen many posts like this on Twitter lately. Some lefties putting out tweets saying, "We want to get the names and information about all the people who were Trump appointees because we want to make sure they never get a job again."
It's not even a lefty, man. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez came out and said that they have a data bank of everyone who voted for Trump.
Right.
AOC, she's part of the Congress. She's part of
Right.
the House of Representatives. And I forget what she said, but there's a tweet out there where she said it. She's like, I want to know everyone who voted for Trump. So, and then she describes it in more detail of what she wants to do. It's insane, man.
The problem is what you were just saying, Mike, about how talking about, let's take everybody who was in Trump's cabinet or these people and make sure that they never get a job again. Make sure that the people who supported Trump never get a job again. All this, and that's a problem. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what side you're on, blue or red.
Look at what Trump did with Hillary Clinton, talking about putting her back behind bars and just out for blood for anybody who was against me.
She should be, though.
That was the same.
She
that
should
was
be
the same,
in
same
jail,
thing.
though.
No,
Get the fuck out of
All
here.
right,
She
let me
should be
finish
in
what I was
jail.
saying. It doesn't
did
matter.
it happen though?
No.
Did it happen, Paul?
That's what
no,
I
it didn't
said.
happen because it's all fake things to just attack
Is that
the
not?
other
Is
side.
that not what I just
it's
said?
just people attacking the other side.
That's exactly what I just said.
It doesn't matter whether it's blue or red, left or right, whatever. The whole point is, realistically, we should all come together, because the part that I've never understood is, once it's official, once the next president is put in place on January 20th or 21st or whatever, whether it's blue or red, shouldn't you as an American citizen be like, even if I don't believe in you, I want whatever is best for the country, which means I hope you do the best possible job you can.
That's the idea.
And we want Senate and, the House, everything to move along in the
Bipartisan.
best possible way for the country. But that doesn't happen, like Mike said, with everything that happened with Obama, everything that happened with Trump, where we spend the first 2 years bickering and fighting and blocking each other and trying not to do stuff, and then nothing happens.
Yep.
Because people initially don't care about the country; they just care about themselves.
No,
And
well,
they're selfish.
it's their jersey.
So,
They
so
care
you
what
want
color
so
they're.
you want what's best for you, not what's best for the country. And they
That's
don't
human
see
nature.
things outside of that. Their scope is so limited to only themselves, and they go, man, if this doesn't line up with my morality, the way that I view things is, then screw it, and I'm going to be angry about it, and then fight it the whole way through.
That's the best way to put it, man, right there.
They're not about the country; they're about themselves. Anyway,
So the media, I'm going to be looking for the media to cool it.
As
You
they
know, to
should.
be
They should.
more. I mean, because the claim was this awful authoritarian bigot was running the country for 4 years, and they don't have the excuse anymore. So, are you going to be more reasonable and more fair now to both sides, or not?
They probably won't be.
And
They should,
Right.
but they won't be.
Right.
And that's the
Right.
thing. Who cares, man? Like I'm past the point. I'll never turn on CNN.
But no,
I'll watch Tucker Carlson and shit like that. But like, I can never ever watch. Dude, they cut the president off 2 days ago. They cut him off while he was literally having a speech. MSNBC, I don't know who the host was, cut him off and said what the president's saying is untrue. He's absolutely wrong, and we're not going to air this. We're gonna cut the president.
But Paul, you should care because you're the one who said that these are the only sources of news that we have. This is whether we believe in them or not.
No. We have alternative media, man. That's beautiful.
You've said before that when we're talking about Facebook and all this different stuff, you're the one who said that the majority, the average person,
right,
this is where they get their news.
Yeah.
So you should care for them to be less biased. You should
that's
want
not gonna,
them
that's
to be.
not going to happen.
I know. I'm just saying. You said you don't care anymore.
No. Yeah, I don't because I think it's past the point. I think it's completely past the point from when they can literally cut the president off and people are okay with that. Because, like you said, we should back the president. And I would listen to Obama talk because I'm interested. I want to know what he's doing. I want to know what Trump's doing. I want to know what George Bush was doing or Bill Clinton. I want to know those things. But when you cut a president off, like I said, there's no hope, man. There's absolutely no hope for the media. Mike, I agree with you, man. I hope they lay off. But we're past that point, man. We're way past. We're entering China communism is what we're entering.
I don't know if you guys heard about this, but yesterday on CNN they had a panel, and the people on the panel made a big deal. They held up their phones and they deleted Trump's Twitter account because since he lost the election, he doesn't deserve to.
They said Twitter already came out and said if he says one tweet that's false, they're gonna basically shadow ban his Twitter account. 88 million followers.
Oh yeah, no, they did say Twitter said that after January 20th, whenever he is no longer officially the president, they're going to treat him as not a person of interest and treat his account the same as they would any other account, which means that if it puts stuff out there that they don't agree with or they think is fake or whatever, that they'll delete it.
Sorry, Mike.
They're blocking him now.
Yeah, I know.
They blocked him.
Same with YouTube.
You don't need that event to happen to start blocking him.
But I'm saying even more so. Like they've supposedly, I mean, they have been blocking him in the last. This was from a couple of days ago, but from a couple of days ago, they were saying in the last 4 days they had already blocked like 80% of his tweets or whatever, and made it to where you could still view the tweets,
but
you had to like be logged in and click on the thing saying yes, I choose to view this, and it had a thing saying, hey, this could be false information based on the election, blah blah blah. The whole thing is now once he is not president, they won't even have that warning. They'll just not have the tweet.
So when you say something like that, Mike, or whenever you bring that up and you're like, I hope the media lays off, dude, it's past that point, man. They're doing this to an acting president. You know, like the censorship is there. 100%. I
mean, you guys realize how close this is to Nazi Germany? I mean, we don't have a dictatorship, but in Nazi Germany, one side doesn't get to talk. And that's what's happening here.
100%, man.
And the big tech, because big tech controls, between Google, Facebook, and Twitter, they control. I mean, I think there's 3 billion members on Facebook worldwide. Mm-hmm. And if they control speech, see, that's that whole thing. That's why they went into the Congress last week and they got kind of grilled because they don't have any qualification. And I saw a nice video about this. They're not qualified to determine speech content, to referee it. If they had psychologists or other experts in their organization that formed a panel to decide about the ethics of particular words that are said or points of view, that'd be one thing. But it's arbitrary. They have a panel that's a left-leaning panel that only censors one side.
I think Candace Owens is in the middle of a lawsuit for the fact checkers for Facebook, if I'm not mistaken. Candace Owens, I know she's like somewhere within the political realm, and she actually has a lawsuit out against the fact checkers for Facebook, is what I meant to say. Yep,
she did.
Yeah. So hopefully something like that gains ground, because that's what we need as grassroots to combat what is exactly happening right now. Because to the point where we've always talked about,
people to stop using these big tech companies as their news, as their not only their news source, but their choice of a platform. So stop using Facebook as a platform. Get off Facebook.
So, Mike, and we've had this.
Get off Twitter.
We've had you on. We've talked about this before, and I think that we're past sorry to say this again, but I think we're past the point of that. Like, these apps are going to be installed within us for a very long time. Yes, there are other apps that are showing up and people are going, but you still have 3 billion people. Really? Come on. And Jesse, back me up here, man. They have to be checked. They have to be. I don't care if and maybe this is me, and I thought I was an anarchist, and maybe I changed my mind now. But in this instance, something needs to change. Something has to happen to these big tech companies where they're held accountable, and they cannot just propagate one side. They can't. That's absolutely insane.
Absolutely. That's what I've always said. We've had a whole podcast.
I don't care if their
just
user
on that
agreement
subject.
says that if you click this button, you agree. Fuck that, man. These people are too dumb and stupid. No pun intended. And I'm sorry for people out there. I'm not calling you dumb, but I am. They're too stupid. They'll literally sit there and just take this information in and take it for what it is.
So you're saying we shouldn't be responsible citizens? We shouldn't be responsible people and actually make a choice of what we do and choose, hey, this Facebook is obviously incredibly biased. Twitter is obviously incredibly biased. They're incredibly left-leaning. This media source, they're going to block what I say, blah, blah. How about you make an informed decision as a person to not use that? That's up to you. I'm tired of us. No, don't get me wrong.
But that's where the voice is. That's where the voice is, man.
But it's too late.
We do that.
So
that's where the voice is.
This is where
We've
Paul's
gotten to this
coming
argument so many times.
Yeah, no. And one, you're right. We're beating a dead horse on this one. But the whole point is they've gained too much power. This is where people access their information, and they know that, and now they're manipulating it. And that's the problem, is that the corporations are not
And that
helping.
problem's not going to go away because that's just the only voice that you have. You can go to these small places where you reach 20,000 people. That's fine.
It's a really difficult topic. It's like the new big thing that will come around is the accountability for these massive social media, the tech industries, these big corporations that literally have algorithms to show you the things that they need to show you to be able to influence you in a certain way, which they 100% have. This is not conspiracy theory at all. They do this because it makes money off of you. Mm-hmm. And we're very money-driven.
Let's use it as a jumping-off point to something
we went
very
crazy.
similar, because I think this is important. My son is basically your guy's age. So, there's got to be similar thinking in everybody in that age cohort, okay? And one of the things he says to me pretty often is, I don't know what the truth is. Because I'm sure
hard.
you guys think that too.
No,
Oh, yeah.
it's so difficult. Yeah.
What's interesting is, like back when I was a kid, you had the 3 big networks, NBC, ABC, CBS. They each had nightly news. Walter Cronkite was on CBS. These are, grandfather type figures. And at the time, everybody assumed they were all truthful, which they probably weren't.
No.
But everybody was trusting. And now everybody's not trusting anymore. And there's obvious bias. And it's a big problem. So you have to figure out, everybody should use more than one source of information. Preferably one left and one right. So you can kind of figure out,
said that, multiple sources.
You can balance them against each other. I have a chart I sent to my son the other day, and I can email it to you, Paul, that basically shows, it's called the media bias chart, and it shows as the left on one side, right on the other, and which networks and publications are on which side. And it's interesting. So you can just look at it. And so the sides are right and left, but then it goes up and down too. And the farther you go down, the crazier it is. So, you can look at it. If you have a favorite news outlet, you can sort of, oh, that's interesting to see where that is. So, but then there's this other thing about, we're talking about tribalism. Tribalism has made decisions about truth harder because now everybody's in their tribe. So what do you observe from your tribe? You observe the echo chamber. If you're on the left, you're watching CNN. So you're not getting exposed to anything else, but your tribe says, hey, this is our official media outlet. That and MSNBC. They're not watching Fox News because don't watch that. It's not the truth. So people are stuck in the echo chamber with no escape. And the other thing is, God love human beings, but people are lazy about doing research and thinking about things and drawing their own conclusion. It's so easy to look at Facebook and just go by what they say, right? You don't have to think. You can lay on your couch and, open up your phone and read somebody's propaganda on Facebook and just, oh yeah, it makes sense.
Critical
'Cause I don't have
thinking
to
went out
think.
the door for everybody
Yeah.
a long time ago, myself included. I'm not acting higher than anybody else. Like,
So tribalism has made people think less because the only check you have to do is, am I in my tribe? And whatever my tribe says, that must be the truth.
Are you going to write a last and final book about how to break tribalism? I'm not saying that you have the answers, Mike.
Oh man, that's
I'm not saying that. I'm just curious. You've done a lot of research on this specific subject, and I'm curious on your conclusions on if there is a way to break it.
So basically what Paul's saying is, how do you unite all people and create the perfect world is what he's saying right there.
Mike's got all the answers.
Mike's going to come up with the book to solve all the
That's
answers.
not what I'm saying. I'm saying you wrote a book about tribalism, the right and the left.
Nobody
and I'm
knows,
just, I'm
Paul.
just-
Nobody knows.
But
yeah.
damn, is there might be a conclusion, and it's just his opinion. I'm not asking for the end all be all question.
Well, there are. I expressed my opinion in the tribalism book in the last chapter, and let me just tell you a little about that because you'll relate to it. So, and it's not as magical as you might think. My first opinion is that anything that threatens the whole country unites the country, and I thought for sure that COVID was going to do that because we all got to get through this, but pretty quickly it became polarized. It should have been everybody pulling together and let's beat this disease and let's all, work together.
No, we
And it
need
never
another race
happened.
and nationality of people to
Right.
to hate.
Aliens, bro. We need aliens so we can. The enemy of
To-
my
to
enemy is
unite
my
us.
friend. That's the only way
The-
that the right and left will get together. Is
Well, the best way to fix it, which is the hardest way to fix it is, and maybe this isn't that hard, is both sides have to start communicating. You have to be willing to communicate because now they say, well, you're an idiot. I'm not even going to talk to you. If you talk to the other side, you could find out that the other side has good ideas too. You don't have a corner on good ideas, and if you both sides get together on sharing ideas, then things will go through the Congress because you got both parties operating there.
that'd be great.
And this
So
this is one of the big issues that I have that I've learned throughout my life. So if I was, this is me going back to like 16, 17 years old, texting my girlfriend. I would text her something and then she would get upset at me because she couldn't hear the tone of my voice or be able to physically interact with me. And then she'd take it the wrong way. And then all of a sudden be upset and I'd be like, no, that's not how I meant it. And then we'd have to meet up in person, like how human beings have developed over time to be able to interact with each other, right?
right.
So now you have these two sides, and you're asking two separate sides to interact with each other, probably through the medium of social media, and so many things can become misconstrued so quickly because people aren't really good writers for the
Yep.
most part.
Yep.
It's hard to get across my exact point and have the feeling of my voice within my writing. That's very difficult to
Yep.
do. That is a very skilled thing to be able to do. It's much easier for me to be in person with you. Eye contact, body language, all of these things are being gone, and everybody's communicating through these now. So you expect two sides to get along with each other, and then have conversation through this medium that doesn't directly reflect what either person is saying, and then it just spirals down. Is also what I'm saying. It's really hard whenever you're saying let's just sit down and talk to each other and then work things out. Well, it's not working because we're using social media to do
Right.
so. And then also you're sitting back in the confidence of your house and you could say the most outlandish things you wouldn't say in front of a group of people because then you'd be more timid. You have a lot
Right.
more confidence sitting back behind a keyboard. You can erase a sentence and then rethink things. That's not truly developmental interaction with human beings, which is also causing, in my opinion, a little bit of this issue. It's really hard to get these things done between the two sides going through social media. Like that's just it's just really once again just another frustrating aspect that I see happening between these two sides that are
No,
that
I
are
agree with you.
polarized. You know.
Yep. Paul, let me mention this because after I finish the Conservative Gene, when that gets published, I already started on the fourth book. It's 1/3 written. The fourth book is going to be basically why the left controlling everything is a bad thing. Because you can make the case for there have been liberals and conservatives since man has walked the earth, because that's the way society is. You're born that way. And so the liberals, when human beings were in tribes and there were 100 people in them, there were some liberals and some conservatives and people in the middle, basically. And they figured out how to get along, right? Okay, so, but now that is gone because the universities are controlled by the left, the media is print and broadcast media is controlled by the left, and big tech, social media is controlled by the left. And so there is no right voice. There is some, but it doesn't compare. And so for the country to move forward, it needs both groups
Balance.
working together. And this is in all my books, but basically the role, and maybe I've never said it this way, the role of liberals and progressives is to think of new stuff and agitate for change. They like change. The role of the conservatives is not to allow change to happen too quickly because it's dangerous. Conservatives like tradition, and they like to use tradition as a framework for moving forward. And in my third book, the chapter 11 is all about the French Revolution. And the reason that's in there is because what France did is they threw out all their traditions. They banished the church. They guillotined the monarchy. They took all the property away from the rich people. They tore everything down. And when you tear everything down, you have nothing. So it took them 100 years to rebuild as a country because they had to start from scratch because they destroyed their traditions. So basically, society is a balance between conservatives and liberals about how to move forward. And there should be ways they can work together to do that. But if only one side is in control and it's the people that want to change everything, then that's a problem because it's changing too fast.
Because the Republicans view it as, oh, give them an inch. Give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Which
now I'm not defending the conservatives because conservatives, if they ruled, nothing would change. We wouldn't have change that we need to have because they want to keep everything the same.
Those are the people that are chanting USA, USA, this is the greatest country in the world, when that's a horrible, in my opinion, a horrible mentality to have. Because if you think that you're the best, that's not how natural progression works. Change is inevitable. You need to change and constantly strive to get better. Once you think you're the best, what are you ever going to attempt to work on? Where is the development there for, for any of that? Which also
it's just
bothered
life.
me a little bit.
You need a balance between chaos and like stagnation is what you're talking about.
Yes.
You can't be 100% stagnant, and you can't be ever changing, constant chaos, ebb and flow. You have to find a balance, and that's why you have to find a balance between liberal views and conservative views.
So it's a beautiful thing that human beings actually inherit is the fact that you have both these views, and if we can actually come together and unify both of these together, then we could see something that's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But good luck doing that because of the way that social interaction is especially happening in 2020.
Right. No, I get that. Yeah. No.
To go back to what I was saying, where everything's done over the internet, nobody's just hanging out and then, having a drink with somebody else, and then you realize, oh man, we're 99% the same, but I'm Republican and you're liberal, and then you realize it's only the 1% that the 1% of you is really the difference, and you go, oh man, this guy's actually a good guy. Like, I'll go bowling with this guy, and you're good. Even though we have these slight different views, we can still get along. You don't have that interaction anymore. That interaction's been done away with. like because of social media, and then once again, like tribalism. I think
In convid.
yeah, a
Mike,
bunch of
Mike
things.
I have a question for
But-
you real quick.
Yeah.
Not to sound too dismal.
I have a
but
question for
that's-
you, just because you probably know a lot more than us on it, and I've never thought of it before. You talked about we were talking about the balance between everything like that, and you were talking about how right now the right has a little bit of a voice, but nowhere near as much as the left, because the
Yeah.
left has, what did you say? You had paper and print media, and
Well, you
know,
have universities. Academia is very left.
okay.
Print and broadcast media is very left, and big social media, big tech.
Okay, so those, yeah, so big tech, the universities and education and everything like that, all these things are, and then just standard media, all very left leaning. My question is, and I've never thought about this, I'm trying to look at this from an outside perspective. Why are all those things left right now? Like, is that a cultural thing that we've changed into as a nation and as a culture, or is there a behind the scenes reason, like it makes them more money or something like that? Like, I'm just curious, what is the
How's the left gain the advantage?
being non-biased and taking a step back? Why are they not all right? Why are they all left?
Before you answer, Mike, it's because they're louder than conservatives. That's my answer to Johnny's question.
That's one part of the answer. Liberals are much more aggressive and louder, and demonstrate for change. People on the right, conservatives, are much more into individualism rather than groupthink. So they're happy living their lives is the point. They're not, conservatives tend to not be demonstrators like the left is. The left has all these causes, the right doesn't. Just
Yeah,
to
because
the right,
they were the discriminated group of people that the left tends to go to. The blacks, female rights, all this. They felt bullied over, and they were over a very long period of time. So now these groups have realized, man, we stand up to bullies and we're very vocal now.
When you're talking about the difference between the left and the right, that's not what I'm asking. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, Johnny's asking how the left gain
but
control.
Yes, I'm at, and no, Mike is getting to that. That's why I wanted to.
My bad. I need to quit talking.
So, and it's not, I mean, I can't sit here and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and explain the whole thing, but I can talk about part of it because I've read part of it. The left our universities started to turn more after the Vietnam War, because a lot of left people went into academia because they wanted to cause change. Now, the other thing that happened at that time is belief in socialism died, because Russia and communist China were exposed as corrupt regimes that we should not aspire to. So socialists here realized that their ideal was bad. So then they decided to change the United States from within academia. So more and more left-leaning professors got jobs, and the conservative professors started to leave. So the left became more and more important in the universities. Where the left or right-wing intellectuals went is in think tanks, because think tanks are independent organizations. They're not affiliated with universities, so you can get a job there, and if you're a conservative, you can come up with ideas in a think tank. The media, I think, and this is not, again, a complete answer, but when Nixon got thrown out of office, I mean, it was a huge boost in journalism. That's when investigative journalism first started. So kids would go to school, get a journalism degree with the idea of finding out bad things, doing research, find bad things and expose it. So it became very aggressive that way and more left-leaning. I think the social media is left because it's on the West Coast, basically. And, people like you guys and me, we're in the flyover zone, so they don't even understand how we think. So to them, it's, there isn't any, they're in that echo chamber. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but I want to say one more thing about it, because you might draw the logical conclusion, well, if left's controlling everything, at some point there won't be any conservatives left because they'll all be turned into liberals. Not going to happen. That's the good news because, and I have a paper about this. This college professor who his kids were like in high school or something, and they were going to go to college, and he was worried about them getting brainwashed to be liberals. And so he did all this research. What he found was when a liberal student goes to college, they get indoctrinated. They get support for liberal ideas. Okay. When a conservative kid goes and he's in a class that's wildly liberal, he just writes the class off. He says, well, that professor's a jerk. I don't believe anything he's saying. And so it just bounces off. So conservatives remain conservatives. And obviously, some kids grow up conservative, they become liberal, and the reverse. But you know, these tendencies that I've been talking about, the moral foundations you have are genetic. They're 50% determined by your genes, whether you're conservative or liberal. So you're not going to change that. And so there will always be the two groups. The problem is giving them equal standing and equal power to work together to accomplish something for everybody.
That's wild, man.
That's
so wait, hold on. So wait, that's deep. That's saying that if it's in our genetics, and I know you've said this before, that makes.
Oh yeah, that's what is his book, The Progressive
Yeah.
Gene, and
What's wildest about that is that just gives even more proof to a God to make it this balance, man. That's insane.
I wasn't gonna go down.
To me, no, I'm not going down the road, Mike, but that's what it tells me. It tells me that there's a God, man. That's insane.
Well, it almost comes down to like a biodiversity kind of thing, to where as far as life goes, you need
balance
and biodiversity.
You took the words,
God.
Yeah, right. You're exactly right, and you don't really know about what I'm going to say, but there's one of the first chapters in book 4 is there's a term in biology called polymorphism, and basically what that means is that a gene can have two outcomes, and an example is sexes. Okay, when a mammal, and many animals other than mammals, obviously, but when a child is born, it's either a male or a female, which means the birth gene, gender gene, can have two outputs, right? Mm-hmm. Eye color. Okay, there's blue eyes and green eyes and brown eyes. That's the eye color gene having more outputs. Well, it's the same with this conservative and liberal mentality. So, and I read a book about it, and I was very impressed with it, and so that's why it's going in my book. So the theory is that, and this is very interesting, that if there's a population that has too many liberals in it, there will start being conservative kids born, because that's what happens in nature when there's too much of one thing.
it's crazy.
That's what you're saying,
Think
Jesse.
about that our genetics are like so that has such a big hold on it.
Because in human populations, if there's an expression of a gene that there's too much of, then it starts causing a problem. So then environmental changes force
biggest thing
the
that
genes
just,
to change.
The
into
biggest thing that
something
you're
else.
we're all interconnected, and that makes sense in that aspect how you're describing it. And I know that's not what you're
didn't
saying.
I didn't want to go down like a spiritual, any kind of spiritual or religious thing with this one, because that could be talked about so separately.
I'm just saying
it is
Mike's
very
talking
interesting.
about.
It is extremely interesting, and it makes sense. I will say that it definitely makes sense.
And the odd thing about it is, for 2,000 years, men have been trying to find the absolute truth and the absolute morality. Like, for example, that's what the Catholic Church does. Here's a set of rules, and these are the only rules you can follow. Mm-hmm. It turns out that morality is relative. The people on the left.
Can you say that again? Can you say that again?
That morality is relative,
Thank you.
meaning it's not constant. So
that's huge for me, by the way. That's literally at the core of a lot of even like political things I believe in, is exactly summed up in that sentence right there. So thank you for saying that.
But the point is, the left is not wrong and the right is not wrong. They're just different. They have different points of view based on their genetics.
That's why I love you, Mike.
They each need to look at the other group and say, I I disagree with you, but that's your opinion, and that's okay. That's what they should be saying.
We should be able
Thanks,
to say that
dude.
to each other, right? That's
Dude,
having a
that
conversation.
is at the core of what I find to be so important. That's why I love having you on. Is that just summed up so much of how I view the world, man. I'm pumped. I just got goosebumps hearing that. I was like, man, that summed it up for me.
Not just Jesse, but
Like-
Talk Junkies, man. Not just Jesse, but Talk Junkies. That's why we all love having you on, man. That's beautiful. Some beautiful words.
Yeah, that's so true. And the fact that I think too many people are too hard nosed about things, which is obviously what we were talking about, and they're not able to zoom back and like look at the big picture kind of thing. It's just what you do, by the way, is, man, just take some time, zoom back, and really look at a bigger picture of things and get outside of yourself for a little bit and see how other people are living and how necessary they are. Because what is me being an extreme right-winged Republican, what am I worth without the polar opposite of me, right? Where's my value without them? So it's almost necessary, you know? You need that to even have yourself be relevant in your opinions on things, is that somebody thinks opposite of you. And then we get this whole weird thing that is humanity. Right?
I was gonna say
This whole
you're
weird
getting into the spiritual
know,
and
I know.
philosophy, the yin and the yang, and the
I know,
balance.
Which is
Hey,
what I tend to
we're
do. Which is
there.
what I tend to do. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to go down to spiritual.
I'm gonna lay it out there.
My
We're
bad,
there.
my bad.
We're there though. We're there, and we've had a beautiful conversation the last 10 to 15 minutes. So we're there. So wherever we're going, we're going. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
I love these podcasts.
What's how we doing on time?
I mean, we're a little bit over an hour, like an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, you want to do some closing, like some closing stuff. I don't even
So
know.
yeah, so in closing, great podcast, Mike. Thanks again for joining, man. Beautiful, man. Oh, yeah. I'll close out with where you can find his books and stuff like that. I mean, his books are right here. But anyways, we did a pre-election podcast with Mike Anderson, and I said that Donald Trump would win. Jesse, what did you say?
Initially, I was saying there's no way he could be reelected, but then as of like whenever the election started, I was like, oh man, this looks that way, that he's going to get reelected. But no, it doesn't
So
matter.
what'd you say?
Doesn't
What'd you say?
matter who
I was
I
asking
thought.
about the last podcast.
Yes, the podcast we
The
did
whole
with Mike.
point is we're doing a recap.
Yes.
We voted 2-2. I remember that,
Yeah.
and I voted for Biden.
Yeah, you did vote for Biden, I think. Johnny, who did you vote for?
We
I go Biden. I don't even know.
You did.
Yeah, you did.
This isn't what we were gonna vote. This is
Yeah.
who we thought
Who
would win.
we thought was going to win.
Johnny and I
sure,
went
sure,
Trump.
I remember this because I was like, if you would have asked me 3 months ago, I was like 70% Trump's gonna win, 30% Biden's gonna win. But when you asked me that day,
Oh, that time frame for sure. I would have
and,
said Biden.
and I was like, I'm just talking about the last podcast. And then I was like, but now would be a lot closer, like 55-45 or 60-40 or something. So I was like, I still think Trump has the edge and he will probably win, but it's a lot more up in the air.
Right.
There you go.
And then now we see the results. Kind of. I mean,
yeah.
I guess there could be, some recounts and some whatever, but for the most part, we see the result.
We'll have to have a post-recount podcast
A post-election
Let's
podcast.
do it.
or an inauguration podcast.
There
or
you go.
whatever.
Something like that, man. Mike, it really is a blessing, man. You were our first guest, man, and just appreciate it, man. Such a beautiful podcast. And ultimately, this is what I was going to say when we went outside to Johnny. This is what I was going to say is just the fact that what is happening again right now in life is ultimately what your work is about. And I find that extremely fascinating. The fact that I read an ancient Rome blog about you and it led us into what is happening right now. It's awesome, man.
Yeah, because we started talking about ancient history in the beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Man,
did.
that seems so long ago.
Our
now
first
that I think
seems
about
like
it.
ancient history.
Yeah.
Well, and we can do that again because we can talk about how similar today's governments are to the Greek and Roman because they're
100%.
basically the same. People don't change.
And we hit
Oh
that
man, see that seems dismal to me. I don't want to hear that.
We
that,
hit-
that we really haven't changed that much.
and we hit it in the
I
last
wanna know that
podcast
we're
a
more
little bit.
progressive. Than
If you don't want to hear the truth, watch
Well,
CBS
yeah.
No,
or
you-
MSNBC or Fox.
Jesse, you're right. Where human beings have changed is they've become much more tolerant of people that are different. So civil rights and liberty are enormously, more important now than they used to be. I mean, 2,000 years ago, there were basically a few rich people, a lot of poor people, and slaves. And so, if you had a slave and you didn't like him, you could kill him. I mean, so there's that. And I think we've talked before about there's a natural human tendency to be fearful of people that don't look like you. It's genetic.
No,
it goes back to when we lived in the jungle, basically. But we've learned that it's what's inside the person, not what's on the outside, that makes a difference. So, and I think I gave that example. You go to a party and you see people dressed a certain way and you go, man, that guy's a jerk.
Oh, yeah, I remember this podcast.
Yep.
I remember us talking about this.
And then you end up talking to the person, they're nicer than half your friends or something, because you have to go that far to find out who's a good person.
Unfortunately, I think that there's a lot of powers that be that are trying to go against that. That's just my opinion. But that's beautiful. It's beautiful. It truly is. I know that's kind of weird, but I think that there's an entity that's going against that, what you just described. But we'll leave it at that, Mike. Sorry.
Okay.
Man, it got soft there at the end.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Check out Mike's books, man. We got both his books up here.
Always.
Well, Johnny's going to put the links down below where you can find Mike's books. We hit it hard tonight, man, with the election, and then we got a little bit into some other things. Mike, I don't know if you have any lasting thoughts, man.
No, I mean, it's going to be an interesting next, couple of weeks. The 2000 event, you guys probably don't remember, that was 37 days before it was decided. And we're in the 5th day.
I was going to say, 2020 is not over. We got an interesting...
Right.
And that's the thing.
Rest of the year.
Americans have and me included, I want results now. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I want instant gratification, and that's one thing that I don't like about the human race, especially in today's society, is we want it now.
Short attention spans and short-term memory.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I'm at fault to that every single day, but Mike, thank you for joining, man.
Okay.
Have a blessed night, man. May the presidential elections swing the way that anyone wants them to swing. Mike, we'll talk to you again, man. I'll hit you up.
Love having you on, Mike.
Yeah, love having you.
All right,
I love having you
later.
on too, man. But we'll check your books out. We're going to send them out to whoever we can. Have a good night, man.
Okay. See you.
Take it easy, Mike.
Paul, you just going to randomly shut off the podcast this time?
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Mike Anderson joining the show again. What a great podcast. I think there was a lot of great information within that podcast. And ultimately, what I got from it is that, yes, there is balance in nature. And I think that we all knew that. But into the entirety of how balance enters nature and how 50-50 it is across the board, if what Mike said was true, and if there is way more... And he said he did the research based upon someone else he found or a book that someone else wrote. If it's way far left, then there will be more conservatives born. If that holds true, that's insane. That's insane.
I mean,
man. That's insane. But that's the balance.
No, I could see that.
That's
happening.
absolutely crazy.
But also, I don't think we're that. Not divided. Divide is not the right word. I don't think we're that far off of balance right now. We are because of the media and stuff. But as far as the actual individuals, once again, 74 million compared to 70 million.
But
and that's just the people who voted.
I don't agree with all that shit, man. That's projected by the media. You know what I'm saying? And Associated Press and Fox and
But I'm
CNN.
saying in general, due to the whole balance thing, I agree. I'm saying if there's too many liberal people, and I'm not talking blue and red like your voting lines.
But to be that close,
as your kind of personality, if there are that many liberal people, then there will be more conservative people born. And vice versa. If there's that many conservative people, there will be more liberal people born, going off what Mike was saying and genetics and how these things actually affect us. And what I'm saying is we're probably pretty balanced right now, give or take 1% or 2%.
That's insane. That's insane. To me, it's
crazy to think about.
It's an
The
archetype.
genetics, once again, I love science, but man, genetics, that's scary shit.
I just want to see an independent party, which will probably
never happen. They're saying this
outside of our lifetime. No, because we are the new thinkers.
They're saying that this election could actually push towards independent voters.
No, yeah, we're the new thinkers.
And independent had like 0.5% or something. 0.1%.
Yeah, so nowhere near our lifetime, Jesse. You can suck on that
Well,
one.
thanks.
It's dismal, but it's true.
Will not happen in our lifetime.
It is what it is. Hey, outside of the election or anything, if you're upset or happy about the election, just be nice to people. You know?
For sure.
Be nice to people. The whole door is open for people. You know?
Take the shopping cart
Put
back,
up your
man.
shopping cart, all the stuff we always
Yeah.
talk about.
Yeah,
be
be
willing
nice.
to listen to someone from the other side.
Tip your server at least 15%,
20.
And that's the thing.
30%,
I'm willing to listen.
40%,
I'm willing
whatever
to,
you want to do.
I'm willing to listen to both sides, but please don't push. I mean, like, yeah, we'll leave it at that. Just
No. Our comments are always. I feel like people are respectful in the comments and all that. Like, let us know your thoughts. Just no hate mongering.
No, I'm all about that, but I'm saying in everyday life, like in order to listen to someone from both sides, like people have to compromise at some point and just be willing to have a conversation like we talked about, as opposed to just saying, no, this is how it is. I got the answer for everything. It's left, or right.
You know,
You know what I'm saying?
You almost guarantee that both those sides are completely wrong.
Yeah.
Even though that they hate hearing that and they refuse to change.
I'm sure everybody.
But thankfully, I thankfully think that the extreme sides are still the extreme minorities
Yeah, the vocal minority.
within
just the small
within
dudes.
this.
Very true.
And they.
I'm down with that, man.
But sadly, they pull so much weight in it, and I think that the reasonable people in America, will handle it correctly, no matter who you voted
We
for.
always do,
and
man.
you'll be polite.
We always
and
do.
you'll still go to work, and you'll put your shopping cart back up, and you'll do what you know is right, as far as it comes down to you and your own individual morality.
And we've
But-
hit a lot of podcasts on moralities, but the best thing that you can do for Talk Junkies, man, and we're
let's get to our
yeah,
shit.
We're
Let's get to
facing
our shit,
dude.
real
Hey, we are 2 weeks away from a great podcast. I'm not going to announce the guest that we're going to have on.
It's going to be big.
It's going to be big, man. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. I'm extremely excited to have this guest on in 2 weeks. Very just man, we're just trying to get that knowledge out there. That's all I'm going to say. But the best thing that you can do for Talk Junkies, man,
It's Hitler's ghost, isn't it?
yeah,
Trying to get that knowledge out there.
Right.
How about having just experience with other people?
I'm
that
trying
are
to
really
spread-
I'm
I'm
talking
trying-
about Talk Junkies right now, Jesse.
Jesse, I'm trying to spread other people's knowledge, man. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying we have it right. I'm saying I like other people coming in on our show and spreading their knowledge. That's all I'm saying. But the best way to spread that knowledge, is to, one, share this video, like this video to all our junkies out there.
Stay fly. Spread your knowledge all over my face.